We're going to start our unit of fractions by talking about simplifying fractions. And when we think about simplifying fractions, the first thing we have to know and remember is that to simplify fractions, we have to be able to find the greatest common factor. And if we know how to find the greatest common factor, then we'll be able to simplify fractions. So first of all, what does it mean to find the greatest common factor? And what that means is that we need to be able to find all the factors of each number in our fraction. So we had 8/20ths that we were working with. We need to be able to find the factors of both of those numbers, and the greatest factor that they share in common with each other is going to be our greatest common factor. That's the number that we can divide out with both of these. So we're going to give this a try. So we're going to stay with that same fraction of 8/20ths. So to find the greatest common factor, we need to list all the factors. And factors are all the numbers that are divisible by 8. So I'm going to start with 1. I'm going to make my list going horizontally. So 8 divided by 1 is 8. So the other end of my list is going to be over here because I want all my numbers in numerical order. So next I'm going to try 2. So 8 divided by 2 will be 4. 8 divided by 3, that won't give us a whole number, so we're not going to put that one down. 8 divided by 4 is 2. We've met in the middle, so we're good with that one. So now we can try 20. So we'll start with 1. 20 divided by 1 is 20. Then we'll move on to 2. 20 divided by 2 is 10. 20 divided by 3 won't give us a whole number, so we won't write that one down. And then next we'd have 20 divided by 4, which would be 5. And then we have 20 divided by 5, which is 4. We've met in the middle, so now we have all of our factors. So here's all the factors of 8. Here's all the factors of 20. Now we need to look at our two lists to see which one is the greatest that they share. So they both have 1. They both share 2. They both share 4. And 4 would be the biggest one they have in common with each other. So I can divide by 1 on both of those. I could divide by 2. But if I divide by 4 on both of those numbers, I'll only have to simplify in one step. So now, let's simplify. We're going to divide by 4 on the top, the numerator, and divide by 4 on the bottom, the denominator, and get 2/5. And that would be 8/20ths in simplest form because there is no other number besides 1 that will go into 2 and 5. Let's try another one for a little extra practice. This time we have 10/12. So same thing to simplify 10/12, we're going to find the greatest common factor. So all the numbers that go into 10, we'll start with 1 again. 10 divided by 1 is 10. Then we can go into 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5. 10 divided by 3 won't give us a whole number. 10 divided by 4 won't give us a whole number. And then we're at 10 divided by 5, which is 2. We've met in the middle. So then we can go on to 12. 12 divided by 1 is 12. 12 divided by 2 is 6. 12 divided by 3 is 4. And then next would be 12 divided by 4. So we've met in the middle. We have all of our factors. So now we can look at our list and see that the greatest common factor between 10 and 12 is 2. So now we can simplify. We can divide 10 by 2 and divide 12 by 2 and come up with 5/6. So 10/12 in simplest form would be 5/6. Now, sometimes when we're simplifying fractions, we're going to have big numbers like 96. And it's hard sometimes to figure out what all the numbers are that go into 96. So there are rules that we can use, divisibility rules that we can use to help us figure out what numbers go into 96 and what numbers don't. So we use this nice handy chart down here to help us figure out what numbers go into 96. But we're still going to do one number at a time. So we'll start with 1, and every number is divisible by 1, so that'll be 96. And then 2. All right, let's look down in our list. It says that if a number is divisible by 2, that means the last digit is even, meaning it's a 0, 2, 4, 6, or 8. Oops, 6 or 8. So up here it ends in 6. So yes, it has to be divisible by 2. Our rule only helps us tell us what it's divisible by. We still have to figure that out. So 96 divided by 2 is going to give us 48. Next, we can try 3. So our rule for 3 down here says the sum of the digits is divisible by 3. Meaning, if I had 9 plus 6, 9 plus 6 will give us 15. Is 15 divided by 3? Yes, it is. That means that 96 is divisible by 3. So 96 divided by 3 will give us 32. Next, we're going to try 4, and down here it says the last 2 digits of the number form a number divisible by 4. Well, this number is only 2 digits long, so that doesn't really help us out very much. But 96 is divisible by 4, and it will go into there 24 times. So 96 divided by 4 is 24. Next, we can try 5. The rule for 5 is that the last digit has to be a 5 or a 0. Nope, it isn't, so that one doesn't work. Our rule for 6 says the number is divisible by 3 and 2. Well, it was divisible by 3 and 2, so that means it will also be divisible by 6. So 96 divided by 6 will give us 16. Next, we're going to try 7. There is not really any rule for 7. There is one, but it's long, complicated. So we don't usually use a rule for 7. But 96 is not divisible by 7. And then next, we can try 8. And our rule for 8 says the last 3 digits form a number divisible by 8. This number is only 2 digits long, so that rule doesn't really apply. But 96 is divisible by 8, and it'll be 12. Next, we can try 9, and the sum of the digits has to be divisible by 9. We saw that equals 15, and 15 isn't divisible by 9, so 9 doesn't work. 10 says the last digit has to be 0. Well, it's not a 0, so that one doesn't work. For 11, the 2 digits would have to be the same number, so like a 2 and a 2 or a 3 and a 3. So it's not divisible by 11, and now we're back to 12. So if you know your divisibility rules, all of these listed down here, it's really helpful for you to figure out what numbers are divisible by some of those bigger numbers that we're working with. So it might be a good idea to memorize some of these rules, especially for 2, 3, 6, 9, 10, 5, especially these first 6 right here. These are kind of the most important rules that you use a lot. All right, let's try simplifying a couple more fractions just to make sure that we have this down. So we have 16 24ths. So we're going to do the same thing that we did before. We're going to find the greatest common factor, and if we need to, we can use our divisibility rule to help us figure out what all the factors are. So we have 16 and 24. So we'll start with 1, because the number is always divisible by 1, and that will be 16. For 2, remember, to be divisible by 2, the last number has to be a 0, 2, 4, 6, or 8. This one is. So 16 divided by 2 is 8. Our rule for 3 says if we add up these 2 digits, 1 plus 6, which is 7, it has to be divisible by 3. That's not, so 3 doesn't work. 4 times 4 is 16. That's one that you probably just know. And then we'd be back in the middle. So that's all of them for 16. Then we can try 24. 24 is one of those numbers that has lots of numbers to divisible by, a lot of factors. So 1 and 24. 2, because it ends in an even number, so that will be 2 times 12. 3 works because 4 plus 2 is 6, and 6 is divisible by 3. So 24 divided by 3 is 8. And then we can do 4. 24 divided by 4 is 6, so that one works. 5 will not work because it doesn't end in a 0 or a 5, and then we're at 6, so we're caught up. So now our greatest common factor between these two is 8. So we can divide by 8 on the top and the bottom. And get 16 divided by 8 is 2. 24 divided by 8 is 3. Now, if you wanted to, you could have used any of these other numbers down here, but then we would have had to simplify in more than one step. So, for example, if I knew that 2 goes into both of these numbers, I can divide by 2 and get 16 divided by 2 is 8. 24 divided by 2 is 12. Still not simplified, so then I have to keep simplifying. So the reason we use the greatest common factor is that we'll only have to divide once instead of multiple times. Let's try one more just to make sure we got it. So we'll do 9 and 27. So we have 9 and we have 27. So remember, we always start with 1 and 9. 2 doesn't work because it's not an even number. 3 works because 3 times 3 is 9, and that puts us back in the middle, so we're done with 9. For 27, again, we'll start with 1, which would be 27. 2 does not work because it's not an even number. 3 works because 7 plus 2 is 9, and 9 is divisible by 3. So 3 times 9 is 27. 4 does not work. 5 does not work. It doesn't end in 0 or 5. 6 does not work because it's not divisible by 2 and 3. 7 does not work. 8 does not work. Then we're back at 9. So the greatest common factor between 9 and 27 will be 9. So I can divide by 9 on the top and the bottom and get 1/3. So a big thing to remember when we're simplifying fractions is that we need to find the greatest common factor so that we only have to divide once. But we can always use any factor that goes into both numbers. We'll just have to divide multiple times. So greatest common factor will always help you with simplifying fractions.